Okay, thank you very much, Bengt and Paul, for inviting me here. I have been researching loyalty programs. I have been invited here to talk a little bit about loyalty programs because for a couple of years they have been my preoccupation. There are very little fields of research that have been so much criticized. There has been so much talking about this field, and yet we have so little conclusions. That's why it was very interesting and very exciting to get into this field, and that's what attracted me. So the approach that I wanted to take in this presentation is to a little bit try to step back and analyze where we are now. After so many years of having different types of loyalty programs, is it still a promise, or is it just a fallacy that has been kind of overblown by the media and by companies? Okay, so if we think about loyalty schemes, I just want to set the scene here to say what are the differences between loyalty schemes or kundelojalitetsprogramma over years. So it started with all sorts of airline frequent flyer programs that also Norwegian had, etc. But then it continued to all sorts of other fields that were not as expected as grocery stores, hotels and airlines. So you have Satselexia, Medlemskap and similar, all sorts of other stores that typically you would not think of as a loyalty program type of stores. For example, online gaming is there. Nespresso, you have their loyalty program. You also have Monkey Museum. Loyalty program. You also have Tesla loyalty program, and all sorts of different fields that have accepted this as the main approach to do your loyalty in the future. And then one thing that I am very often asked now is, okay, so are loyalty programs dead? And can we now say that everything really moved towards the new forms, towards digital marketing? Well, basically what I would say is that loyalty programs have now just changed the channel that they are using. Rather than using plastic cards, now you have Trump and all sorts of other loyalty programs that are just shifting towards digital channels, all sorts of social media activities. So what I would say here, or what I'm analyzing here, is all sorts of different programs, different initiatives that firms are taking in order to establish relationships with companies, regardless of which channel they're using. And one of the big things, after all of these years of research, one of the big questions that still remains is that marketeers keep on pouring in money, time into their loyalty programs, but are they getting the kind of payoffs they expect in long-term relationships, customer engagement, and impact on sales and profitability? Or are they just wasting all of this loyalty investment? And I think this is one of the questions that I have been asked as a researcher most often, both by other researchers, by companies, and by media. And in my presentation, I will try to at least steer some of the interest towards how to slightly approach the direction of how do we deal with this issue? How do we deal with trying to answer this question? Okay, so if we start with what's happening with loyalty programs, we do not have very good census for Scandinavia, but maybe numbers will be different, but the pattern is exactly the same as in other countries in the world. So what we see is that the number of loyalty programs, number of people joining loyalty programs has been increasing tremendously over years. And they're still increasing very strong, despite all of the criticism, despite all of the problems with loyalty programs. Around 26% was the recent census increase that we know from 2015. Given that, the other side of the story is, this means that we are, as consumers, and I'm speaking here as a researcher and as a consumer, we do collect more and more points. Have you noticed that every time you go to another store, every time you join another service, they offer you some sort of like, would you like to become our member, right? And every time we are there, what happens? We collect a new one. Yes, it sounds like a good idea. And then what? What firms typically believe is that once customer joins, then the whole business is done. It's going to go really well from there. What actually happens is that 58% of those loyalty programs, those tilbuds that we get in, are not used. Customers are actively using less than half of the loyalty programs that they join. So once customers join, they typically fade away slowly. And what we see is that over years, the situation is getting worse and worse. So here you see that 58% is not active according to the recent census, and the active participation has been turning down, has been going down over years. And this is the big problem with loyalty programs. And the question is, why is this happening? Is it that loyalty programs don't work, or is it that the way how we were trying to get loyalty programs to work is not really the most efficient one? Lessons from research. So I would like to raise only 2 or 3 main points. There are so many different things that we can talk about here. But the main point that I would like you to try to think about in your loyalty programs, in your any initiative or however you're calling it, are you really using the main potential that your loyalty program can bring? Do you really know what is the main potential that your loyalty program is bringing to you? The first thing that as a researcher I would like to warn about is beware of all of those bombastic promises that I see promised by consultants, promised by people who are not doing research so much, that are promising 2 or 3 digits increase in sales, purchase frequency, and share of wallet. They're saying things like, okay, so relative to those who are not members of your program, your loyalty program members have 50%, 100%, I have even seen 300% increase. So what does that mean? That the moment you get someone to become a loyalty program members, you're likely to get 300% more sales? Is that really correct? What we know from research across many years is that the short-term impact of loyalty programs or any of those loyalty initiatives goes around from 6 to 25, and 25 was of the first programs in the short run. More likely, you are likely to achieve around 6% in fast-moving consumer goods if you do it well, and around 4% when you analyze all the airlines and all the programs. Now, the second point to take is that the true effect on share of wallet, the true effect on what you should expect is up to 7 times lower than what everyone else is promising, than what consulting is promising. And now let me try to explain why. So if we start with the notion of, think about who is actually joining loyalty programs, who is joining any of your initiatives. Typical arguments of the consultants, as I said, is that members spend, those who are members of your loyalty program spend 50%, 100%, 200% more than those that are non-members. So you would think that once you would join, or you would get someone to join the loyalty program, they will go and spend as much as that. The truth is that basically, if you think very carefully about who is likely to join any of those loyalty programs, those are people that already like your brand. Think about yourselves as consumers. If you do not go to a certain store, if you do not purchase in a certain store, if you don't live close nearby the store, you're not really likely to purchase there. If you're not likely to purchase there, you're not really likely to join their loyalty program. So what happens is that those who are already very fond of your firm, they typically tend to join your loyalty program. Those that live nearby, particularly for grocery retail loyalty programs, those who live nearby and shop there already, they are the most likely to join your loyalty program. If you are traveling extensively, and particularly if your company is paying for that, you're likely to become a frequent flyer. Those for which it is convenient to collect and redeem points are those that are the most likely to join your loyalty program. Now, the part of the truth comes here. The fact is that in the first place, people who are likely to join your loyalty program, they have much higher purchase frequency. They're spending much more with you than those that are not joining your loyalty program. So if you think about it, it is the fact that those who are in your loyalty program are indeed spending 50% more than those. But are you really likely to get a new app, to get a new loyalty program, and then all of a sudden these people are going to switch from one store to another and start purchasing with you? That has been much more trickier than what was thought at first. Okay, are all your consumers equally valuable? Now, if you think about how, for any firm, if you analyze the value of customers, then we see that approximately some parts, about 50% of all your customers, are not really very profitable. Now, the thing is that very often firms are thinking that those that are not very profitable, where the profitability declines, that those are basically your non-valuable, your bad customers, etc. The fact is that some of those that are not profitable are actually your best customers, those that you believe are your best customers. Some of the very best high spenders are very often high cost as well. If you have someone who is very good in using your loyalty program, then we have noticed that some of those who are really high spenders, they really know the system, they really know how to actually play the system, so they really know how to collect rewards. Some of them could be seen as resource drainers. So what I'm saying is that if obviously not all of your customers are equally valuable, how come that we typically offered all of them exactly the same discount, exactly the same reward? Why do we do that as firms? Probably because it's easier, because it's much harder to try to analyze, okay, so who belongs here, who belongs there, and who belongs here? But if they're not all equally valuable, should you offer to all of them exactly the same reward? Okay, so who are the customers that increase the most? Once you get customers to join your loyalty programs, what happens with customers that you typically believe are your best customers? So if you think, typically what happens in all industries is that those who are spending the most, you typically claim to be the best customers. And once you have those as the best customers, those who are spending less are less worth. Those who are spending very little, they are little worth. Now, I'm talking about those people who do join and who do kind of participate in your loyalty program, who really take on the game. Of those people, who increases the most? Those two groups. So what happens is that low and medium level spenders, those that you typically believe are not your best customers, they are the ones that change the most, that increase the most throughout years as being your loyalty program member. Why? It's because those customers are typically what we call hitting the ceiling. Think about if you are using already a lot of any product, how much more, so if you're drinking already lots of Coke per day, how much more Coke can you drink? So typically those that you see as the best customers, they do not increase the most. Those that you see as less valuable customers are those that typically increase the most. And if you understand this, then you would not treat those customers as bad ones. what to do to get it right. So now that I have imposed this criticism and I ask you as practitioners to start thinking about who are actually people, do you really use the potential, do you really understand why these people have joined and who has joined, what to do to really get it right, to understand what is the true effect that we have on people who have joined our loyalty program, not relative to those who are outside, not these 300%. What you should actually do is take lookalikes. Take people that have exactly the same pattern of behavior. Those who, if you analyze two persons that are in everything else very similar, but one of them joined the loyalty program and another one didn't, and then if I know the history of what was happening with this particular customer, then I can really see, okay, so relative to the fact how similar they were before this person joined the loyalty program, let's say one of those ladies, relative to that fact, how much, if I keep the control, if I compare this person with the lookalike, with the person with exactly the same pattern, how much this person have changed over time after joining that loyalty program. So that's one way to try to really deal with this problem, that in the first place, those who really like your loyalty program, those who are really purchasing a lot from you already, they are most likely to join. So there are, in a good way, if you want to collaborate with research, there are ways to really prove how much it is really worth, not how much someone is saying in media. Lessons number 2. Do you really know why your customers join and what makes the value for them? I'm really happy we did not coordinate, any of us. I'm really happy to hear all of those discussions before, because it deals with what I wanted to point out here. Do you really know what drives your customer? Let me give you insight from a large survey of thousands and thousands of customers. If you ask them which benefits motivated you to join a loyalty program, then majority of people are saying that they do appreciate the fact that they're able to earn points or earn miles, so do something. Somewhat less that they are interested in service offer or discounts. Not so many really talk about discounts in the first place. But if you ask them, okay, so given the fact that 50% of you is lost, what made you continue purchasing? What made you continue being part of it? Then you see that those things that have attracted them, discounts, for example, they're not really featuring there. It's about easy to understand. Do I understand you as a firm? And do you as a firm really understand me as a customer? And rewards that are relevant to me. Why did you stop participating? It's exactly the opposite. Did not provide me rewards that are of interest and relevance to me. It's too hard to earn points for rewards. And I see it every day with loyalty programs here as well. So the question that I would like to ask here is, think yourself, if you don't have a loyalty program, if you don't have the bonus points exactly, how relevant your efforts are. Particularly if you do have any of those loyalty incentives, do they really create loyalty? Is it really all about tilbuds? Let me go a little bit deeper into this. So loyalty programs were meant to enable firms to really collect this information about us as consumers. So the whole point, the whole idea behind building up loyalty programs in the first place was, okay, let me try to collect information about what customers really want, what really drives them in a relationship with us, and then help me build the relationship by becoming more relevant. That would strengthen the loyalty. Now, what we see in practice are loyalty program gimmicks. sales promotion gimmicks. So what has been happening is that loyalty, what I'm saying to you critically is that loyalty programs were not supposed to be yet another sales promotion gimmick. When I'm saying sales promotion gimmick, I mean tilbuds that you have 10% off, where you don't know whether it's really tilbud that was driving this. When these tilbuds, when these new things that we are getting, as a consumer, I typically don't really see that companies are really using this data to improve relationship with me. They seem to be yet another sales promotion. And that's what makes loyalty program, or that's what makes customers not being so willing to really trust that loyalty programs are building loyalty. Do you really build loyalty just with tilbud? Questions to ask ourselves. So, after I have said this, how are we really using individual data insights? Very often firms are telling me when they're asking me about this, firms are telling me things like, okay, it doesn't matter whether you have your phone with you or something. We don't really use it. Here, you get 10% anyhow. That's not supposed to be it. That's not building loyalty. Does that really build loyalty? Which value would be really relevant for customers? And should we really think more only in terms of discounts? Now, let me try to a little bit expand on this idea of discounts. Why am I kind of attacking this? Not only because discounts are equal, the same thing for everyone, and it does not build relationship with anyone. It's because it's also not the most sound, not the greatest potential that loyalty program has. Okay. So here is a table that talks about elasticities. So this is if you invest 1%, if you invest 1% in advertising, how much your sales in a firm would increase. So if you invest 1% in advertising, you're likely to see in the long run 0.1% increase in your sales. Think about what happens with sales calls, distribution. This is the price. And this is the price promotions, tilbuds. What we know is that from research, and this is particularly dealing with fast-moving consumer goods, the reason is that we have the most studies have been conducted in fast-moving consumer goods. So if in your industry numbers are slightly different, it could be, but the direction will be exactly the same. So what happens in the long run is that if you invest in distribution, you're likely to have more than what you invested back. But if you invest in price, and particularly in price promotions, the long-term elasticity is -4. That means that in the long run, playing with promotions, dealing with or having the price promotions as your main strategy works so much less than some of those customer satisfaction, brand building, or electronic word of mouth, for example, strategies. What happens is that once we as consumers get used to tilbuds, we do not buy when there is no tilbud. We're just waiting for yet another tilbud. If it's possible to stockpile, then I'm likely to buy when it's on sales, to buy more, and wait for another sales. When the first idea of price promotions was introduced, the idea was, okay, let's try to get someone to just for the first time buy with us and then continues buying with us. What happens now is that whenever I enter any store, think about, for example, shampoos. Whenever you enter a store, there is one brand on sales. And we don't see really so much difference across brands. So what happens is that rather than continue purchasing with the brand that was last time on sales, I just buy another brand that is on sales. So in the very long run, you have a negative effect of dealing with only and thinking only of tilbuds. So if you focus there, you're likely to lose, or you're likely to lose much more than if you're trying to build the value. In one of my research, what we analyzed is, okay, so if you give a choice to consumers, if they can choose between many different types of rewards, discount, and then many other things, what would happen? We have seen that if you allow this, then customers, when they are redeeming, they are likely to significantly increase their purchase behavior just around the point of redeeming. This was the point of redeeming, and the weeks before and weeks after. So what we see is that if you manage to get customers to engage with you, if you are really providing some value, some relevance, that is going to drive behavior, that is going to drive engagement. And of course, engagement really soon goes back to normal, but there is a peak. And if you are really good in relating to customers, that peak is going to keep you from getting those customers go away. Now, do you really know what drives your customers? Is the question that I would like to ask you to think about. Do you really know what drives your customers? Is it really Tilbud? Is that all that we want from our relationships with companies? Should everyone get the same type of Tilbud? Should someone get other types? Let me give you some examples from other countries. So you have all sorts of initiatives that are going beyond this, the mere price and the same discount for everyone. You have points for social sharing, you have points for tweeting, you have points for retweeting, redeem or bid points for VIP adventures. You have all sorts of gamification. Starbucks is, for example, using gamification to try to engage customers. Because one of the greatest problems is that, okay, you get, by discounts, by having discounts, you get customers to join. How do you keep them from getting away? How do you manage to become one of those 42% that is where customers are actually using your program? I have been included in the project of Coca-Cola that is trying to increase convenience by allowing app payments on machines and by allowing this type of convenience increase. I have been recently asked to comment about should utility advisors, should utility companies like Hafslund and Norges Energy and similar, should they go for a loyalty program? And that loyalty program should be, again, some discount. What we see is that sometimes in utility world, it's really not about discounts. It's really not that drives my behavior. But if I need to do something, as a gamification in this case, where I'm playing a game to reduce the consumption of energy, where I'm seeing that as a consumer, I have actually reached a milestone that I have lowered the carbon footprint, that I have managed to do some environmentally friendly type of research. That seems to be working much more than discounts. So what I'm saying is that there are all sorts of different ways to try to see what your value or what customers see as your main value, and then try to relate. And by relating to something that really creates value for me as a customer, I'm much more likely to develop a relationship with the firm rather than just being played on discounts. Because that's what drives this dropout. Okay? As the final point in my presentation, I have only one thing to make you think about. Remember that it's really not about the type of IT platform that you have. I'm typically asked, what do you recommend? Which IT company I should use for my CRM or for my loyalty program? It's really not about that. It is really about how much you're able to harvest the data that you have, not to be afraid to break out of doing business as usual and try to venture into the new world. Okay? Thank you.